My name is Rebecca Hayes, and I thought I knew what family meant, until the day my father publicly humiliated me at his retirement gala, mocking my career as a cute little hobby while praising my brother's mediocre achievements. What he didn't know was that I had spent 5 years building something extraordinary in secret, and the revelation I was about to unleash would shatter his entitled pride and reshape our family's legacy forever. Sometimes the greatest revenge isn't spite, it's success they never saw coming. Subscribe to our channel so you never miss incredible stories of revenge, justice, and personal redemption. Every day we publish new stories of people who transformed pain into triumph. Turn on notifications. My name is Rebecca Hayes, and the chandeliers at the Peninsula Hotel had never looked more beautiful or more cruel. I stood near the bar, champagne flute trembling in my hand, watching my father work the room with the confidence of a man who had never questioned his place in the world. The Chicago skyline glittered through floor-to-ceiling windows, a backdrop for what should have been a celebration of Richard Hayes's 40-year career in commercial real estate development. Instead, it was becoming the stage for my public humiliation. Ladies and gentlemen, if I could have your attention. My father's voice boomed across the ballroom, amplified by the microphone he'd claimed like a throne. 300 guests in designer gowns and tailored suits turned toward him, champagne glasses paused mid-sip. I recognized many faces, Chicago's business elite, politicians, old family friends who had watched me grow up. My stomach twisted. I knew what was coming. Before we conclude this wonderful evening, I want to acknowledge the people who made my success possible, Dad continued, his silver hair perfectly styled, his custom Tom Ford suit fitting him like armor. My beautiful wife Eleanor, who has stood by me for 42 years. Mom smiled from her table, gracious as always, though I caught the tightness around her eyes that suggested she'd already had too much wine. And my children, Dad said, his gaze sweeping past me to land on my older brother, particularly my son, Marcus, who joined Hayes Development 5 years ago and has proven himself to be a natural leader. Marcus just closed the Riverside Plaza deal, $89 million, our biggest project yet. The room erupted in applause. Marcus stood, buttoning his jacket with practiced ease, nodding with false humility. I wanted to scream. I had done the financial modeling for Riverside Plaza. I had identified the zoning loophole that made the whole project viable. But Marcus had presented it as his own work, and Dad had never questioned it. And my daughter, Rebecca. Dad finally acknowledged me, his tone shifting to something between affection and condescension. Becky has been pursuing her little passion project. What is it again, honey? Some kind of online consulting thing? Heat flooded my face as 300 pairs of eyes found me in my corner near the bar. I was 32 years old, held an MBA from Wharton, and he was reducing my work to a cute little hobby in front of Chicago's power elite. It's strategic advisory consulting for emerging tech companies, I managed, my voice barely carrying across the room. Dad chuckled, the sound warm but dismissive. Right, tech stuff. Very modern. Though I keep telling her, nothing beats brick and mortar. Real estate you can see and touch. This internet business is all smoke and mirrors, if you ask me. He winked at the crowd, drawing polite laughter. But hey, she's young. She'll figure it out eventually and maybe join the family business when she's ready to do something serious. The words landed like physical blows. Something serious, as if the past 5 years of my life meant nothing. As if the company I'd built from nothing, the clients I'd served, the 16-hour days and sleepless nights, none of it mattered because it didn't fit his definition of success. I set down my champagne glass before I could throw it. Now, let's raise our glasses to 40 wonderful years, Dad concluded, lifting his own glass high. And to the next generation, carrying forward the Hayes legacy, particularly Marcus, who I'm proud to announce will be taking over as CEO of Hayes Development next month. The applause was deafening. Marcus embraced Dad, both of them grinning like they'd won the lottery. My mother caught my eye across the room, her expression sympathetic but helpless. She'd never stood up to my father in 42 years of marriage. She wasn't about to start now. I excused myself from the increasingly curious looks of nearby guests and headed toward the bathroom, my designer heels clicking against marble floors. The Peninsula's restrooms were as luxurious as everything else in the hotel, all gold fixtures and Italian marble. I locked myself in a stall and finally let the tears come, hot and angry. How many times had this happened? How many accomplishments had been dismissed, minimized, or attributed to luck rather than skill? I had graduated summa cum laude from Northwestern. I had been recruited by 3 top consulting firms before deciding to start my own company. I had built Meridian Strategic Partners from nothing into a thriving consultancy with 22 employees and $8 million in annual revenue. But none of it mattered to Richard Hayes because it wasn't real estate, wasn't traditional, wasn't what he understood or valued. My phone buzzed. A text from my business partner and best friend, Jordan Chen. Please tell me you're not letting him get to you. Remember what we talked about. Remember what you've built. Jordan was right. I had built something bigger than my father could imagine. I wiped my eyes, fixed my makeup in the mirror, and made a decision. Tonight was supposed to be about my father's legacy. Fine. Let's talk about legacy. When I returned to the ballroom, dinner service had begun. I found my assigned seat at a table with various family friends and business associates, pointedly not the main table where my parents and Marcus held court. The conversations around me felt hollow, people discussing real estate markets and vacation homes while I pushed expensive food around my plate. Rebecca, dear, your father must be so proud, said Mrs. Patterson, an old friend of my mother's who wore enough diamonds to fund a small country. Both his children doing so well. I smiled tightly. Actually, Mrs. Patterson, I've been meaning to ask, are you still on the board of the Gleacher Center at the University of Chicago? She brightened. Why, yes, I am. Have been for 15 years now. I'm giving a keynote there next month, I said, letting the words drop casually, about disruption in traditional industries and the future of strategic consulting. The dean specifically requested me after Meridian's work with the Kellogg School's Innovation Lab was featured in the Harvard Business Review. Mrs. Patterson's eyebrows rose. The Harvard Business Review? My goodness, I had no idea your little consulting thing was so successful. It's been an interesting journey, I said, my smile genuine now. Last year we did strategic planning for 14 Fortune 500 companies. This year we're on track for 23. The conversation at our table shifted. Suddenly, people were asking questions, leaning in with actual interest rather than polite dismissal. I mentioned, carefully and without bragging, the clients we'd served, major tech companies, pharmaceutical giants, even 2 international banks. I described the innovative approaches we'd developed, the industry awards we'd won, the speaking engagements I'd delivered at conferences from San Francisco to London. And what have you read? You're watching this and recognizing your own family dynamics? Have you ever been dismissed by someone who should have been your biggest supporter? Drop a comment below and share your story. You're not alone. Why haven't we heard about this? Mr. Chen, Jordan's uncle and a major player in Chicago's business community, asked with genuine confusion, "This is extraordinary work, Rebecca." I prefer to let the work speak for itself, I said, though the truth was more complicated. I hadn't wanted my father to know the full extent of my success until I was ready, until I had built something so undeniable that even Richard Hayes couldn't dismiss it. As dessert was served, I noticed my father glancing over at our table, clearly curious about why so many people were clustered around me, engaged in animated conversation. Marcus looked less curious and more annoyed, as if I was stealing his spotlight. The evening was winding down when opportunity presented itself. The event organizer announced that anyone who wanted to share memories or toasts could approach the microphone for the final hour. Several people spoke, business partners recounting deals, old friends sharing funny stories, employees praising my father's leadership. Marcus gave a polished speech about carrying forward Dad's vision, heavy on platitudes and light on substance. Then I stood up. My mother's eyes widened in alarm. She knew that look on my face, had seen it before when I was about to do something that would shake up the family equilibrium. But I was done being silent, done being dismissed. I walked to the microphone with my head high, my heart pounding, but my hands steady. Good evening, everyone. For those who don't know me, I'm Rebecca Hayes, Richard's daughter. I smiled at the crowd, seeing the mixture of curiosity and anticipation on their faces. Dad, thank you for 40 years of hard work and dedication. Your success in commercial real estate has been remarkable, and Chicago's skyline is better for your contributions. My father nodded. looking pleased at what he assumed would be a simple, dutiful tribute. "You taught me many things growing up," I continued, my voice carrying across the now silent ballroom. "You taught me about negotiation, about perseverance, about always striving for excellence. But perhaps the most valuable lesson you taught me was this. When someone doesn't believe in you, when they dismiss your dreams and belittle your ambitions, you have two choices. You can let their doubt define you, or you can use it as fuel to build something so extraordinary that their opinion becomes irrelevant." The room had gone very quiet. My father's smile had frozen on his face. 5 years ago, I started Meridian Strategic Partners with $50,000 in savings and a laptop. You called it a cute little hobby. Tonight, you called it an online consulting thing and suggested I wasn't doing anything serious. I paused, letting the words hang in the air. So I'd like to take a moment to share what that cute little hobby has actually become. I pulled out my phone and nodded to the AV tech, who displayed my prepared presentation on the massive screens flanking the stage. Meridian Strategic Partners is now one of the top 20 strategic consulting firms in the Midwest, specializing in digital transformation and innovation strategy. Last year, our revenue was $8.2 million. This year, we're projected to hit $12 million. We have offices in Chicago, Austin, and as of last month, Manhattan. The screens showed photos of our office spaces, our team, major client logos that drew audible gasps from the audience. Our client list includes Microsoft, Johnson & Johnson, JP Morgan Chase, and 41 other major corporations. We've been featured in Forbes, Fast Company, and yes, the Harvard Business Review. 3 months ago, McKinsey & Company approached me about an acquisition. Their offer was $47 million. My father's face had gone pale. Marcus looked like he'd been punched. "I turned them down," I continued, "because Meridian is worth more than that, and I'm not ready to sell. Current valuation estimates put us between $65 and $70 million, and we're exploring Series A funding to expand internationally." The silence in the room was absolute. You could have heard a champagne bubble pop, but here's what matters more than the numbers. "Dad, you said I'd figure things out eventually and join the family business when I was ready to do something serious." I met his eyes directly. I did figure things out. I built something serious, something that changes how companies operate, how they innovate, how they compete in a rapidly evolving marketplace. I did it without the Hayes name opening doors. I did it without your connections or your money. I did it despite being told repeatedly that what I was doing didn't matter. My voice softened, though every word still carried weight. Hayes Development had an exceptional year with the Riverside Plaza deal, $89 million, as you mentioned. Congratulations to Marcus on that. I nodded at my brother, whose face was now flushed with anger, though I should mention that the financial modeling and zoning analysis that made that deal possible, that was work I did 2 years ago, before I left the family business. Marcus presented it as his own, and you never questioned it. Marcus shot to his feet. "That's not— I have the original files, Marcus," I said calmly, time-stamped with my digital signature. "I also have the emails where you asked me for help, and I provided it, thinking you'd at least credit me in the presentation." "You didn't," Dad finally found his voice. "Rebecca, this is hardly the time or place." "Actually, it's the perfect time and place," I interrupted, something I had never done before in my life. The rush of adrenaline was intoxicating. "You made this evening about legacy, about passing the torch to the next generation. Well, I'm part of that generation too, Dad, and my legacy is already bigger than you ever imagined it could be." I turned back to the audience, many of whom were staring with open mouths. Here's what I learned building Meridian. Success isn't about impressing the people who doubt you. It's about proving to yourself that their doubt was wrong. My father didn't believe in my work, so I stopped trying to make him believe. I focused on my clients, my team, and my vision. And you know what? It worked. The screens changed to show a final slide, the Meridian Strategic Partners logo, and a simple message. "Now accepting Series A investment inquiries. Contact information below." "Dad, I love you," I said, my voice catching slightly despite my determination to stay strong. "But I don't need Hayes Development. I don't need your approval or your recognition. I already built my own legacy, And unlike brick and mortar, ideas and innovation can change the world. I stepped away from the microphone and walked back to my table through absolute silence. Then, slowly, someone started clapping. Mrs. Patterson, of all people, rising to her feet with tears in her eyes. Then Mr. Chen. Then others, until the entire ballroom was standing, applauding, everyone except my father and Marcus, who sat frozen at the main table, looking like the world had just tilted off its axis. I collected my clutch, hugged my mother briefly. She whispered, "I'm proud of you, baby," and left the peninsula, hotel with my head high and my heart pounding. The Chicago night air was cold and clean against my flushed face as I waited for my Uber. My phone exploded. With texts and calls, Jordan demanding details, several investors who'd been at the gala asking for meetings, reporters from business journals requesting interviews, and one text from my father. "We need to talk. Tomorrow. My office. 9 a.m. I stared at it for a long moment, then deleted it without responding. For the first time in my life, Richard Hayes would have to wait on my schedule, not the other way around. 3 days later, I finally agreed to meet him. Not at his office, but at a coffee shop in River North, neutral territory where his authority held no weight. He looked older when he walked in. The confidence I'd always associated with him somehow diminished. He ordered coffee, black like always, and sat across from me without speaking for a long moment. "You humiliated me," he finally said. "No," I replied calmly. I told the truth. There's a difference. In front of 300 people, who all thought I was running a cute little hobby because that's how you described my work. Did you expect me to just accept that? He rubbed his face, suddenly looking every one of his 67 years. "I didn't know, Rebecca. I didn't know it was that successful. You never told me. I tried to tell you, Dad, many times. Every time I came to family dinner and mentioned a new client or a company milestone, you changed the subject or made a dismissive comment. After a while, I stopped trying. I stopped seeking your approval and focused on building something that didn't need it." The truth settled between us like a third presence at our small table. $70 million, he said quietly. "Jesus, Becky, that's more than Hayes Development is worth." "I know, and you did it in 5 years. Took me 40 to build what I have. Different industries, different times," I said, though I couldn't help feeling a small surge of pride at his acknowledgement. He looked up, meeting my eyes. "I was wrong about you. About your work. I dismissed something I didn't understand because it scared me. The admission shocked me. Scared you? You're smarter than me, Rebecca. Always have been. When you were 10 years old, you were doing math problems I couldn't solve. When you were in college, you understood business concepts that took me years to learn. I told myself you were just book smart, that real-world experience was different. But the truth is, I was afraid that if I acknowledged how brilliant you were, it would somehow diminish what I'd built. I felt tears prickling behind my eyes but refused to let them fall. "Dad, I never wanted to diminish you. I just wanted you to see me." "I see you now," he said, his voice rough, "and I'm sorry it took a public confrontation for me to open my eyes." We sat in silence for a moment, years of hurt and misunderstanding hovering between us like ghosts that might finally be laid to rest. "What happens now?" he asked. "Now I keep building Meridian. We're in serious talks with 2 major venture capital firms about Series A funding. If all goes well, we'll be opening offices in London and Singapore by next year." He nodded slowly. "And us? Your family?" I thought about that, about whether success and vindication were enough, or whether healing relationships required something more. "That depends," I said finally. "Can you accept that my path is different from yours but equally valid? Can you stop waiting for me to fail or come crawling back to Hayes Development? Can you be proud of what I've built instead of threatened by it?" "Yes," he said immediately, then corrected himself. "I'm trying. I can't promise I'll be perfect at it, but I'm trying." It wasn't everything I'd dreamed of hearing from him, but it was honest, and maybe honesty was more valuable than perfect words. "Then we start there," I said. "No more dismissive comments. No more suggesting my work is less important than Marcus's. And if you really want to make amends, you'll tell the truth about the Riverside Plaza analysis." He winced, but nodded. "I'll talk to Marcus. We'll issue a correction, give you proper credit. Thank you. As we stood to leave, he pulled me into an awkward hug. Richard Hayes had never been comfortable with physical affection. But there was genuine emotion in the embrace, a wordless apology for years of not seeing his daughter clearly. For what it's worth, he said as we pulled apart, your mother always knew. She tried to tell me, but I wouldn't listen. I smiled slightly. Mom sees more than people give her credit for. 6 months later, Meridian Strategic Partners closed a $25 million Series A funding round led by Sequoia Capital. We were expanding internationally, hiring aggressively, and fielding acquisition offers that now started at $95 million. Marcus and I had reached an uneasy truce after he publicly acknowledged my contribution to the Riverside Plaza deal. He'd apologized stiffly and clearly at our father's insistence, but an apology nonetheless. Dad had started asking real questions about my work, attending one of my keynote speeches and staying afterward to meet my team. He still didn't fully understand what we did at Meridian, but he was trying, and the effort mattered more than perfect comprehension. The greatest change came when he introduced me at a business luncheon 6 months after that fateful gala. This is my daughter, Rebecca Hayes, he told a table of his colleagues. She's the founder and CEO of Meridian Strategic Partners, one of the fastest-growing consulting firms in the country. I'm incredibly proud of her, simple words. But they meant everything, as I sit here now, reflecting on that night at the Peninsula Hotel when I finally stopped seeking approval and started demanding respect. I realized the most important lesson wasn't about revenge or vindication. It was about knowing your own worth, regardless of whether others recognize it. My father's opinion of me hadn't changed my company's value or my capabilities. It had only changed my peace of mind. The moment I stopped needing his validation, I became truly free to build something extraordinary. For anyone reading this who feels unseen by their family, who has been told their dreams are impractical or their ambitions are foolish, believe in yourself first. Build your vision with such dedication and excellence that their doubt becomes irrelevant. Success isn't about proving them wrong. It's about proving yourself right. And sometimes, if you're lucky, they'll eventually see what was there all along. My name is Rebecca Hayes, and I learned that the best revenge isn't proving someone wrong. It's building something so right that their opinion stops mattering. Thank you for reading my story. If it resonated with you, subscribe to our channel and share your own experiences in the comments. Every day we share new stories of people who transformed pain into power. Turn on notifications so you never miss a story of triumph.